Hey everybody, Blaise here, and it's been a really long time since I've done any Aaron's art tips, specifically Aaron's art tips. I've done some other artistic videos, but I wanted to give you an Aaron's art tip today. I've decided to go back and start doing more of that. So why don't we just go ahead and dive in. I want to talk to you about how to do chrome, thinking about a metallic surface. How do you do a shiny metallic surface? How do you paint that? Well, there's a couple of things to think about when you're doing that. And once you get those in your head, it's really kind of an easy transition from there. There's a couple of rules that I keep in mind, and there's a couple of ideas I keep in mind. First of all, the first thing to think about when you're doing chrome or metallic surface, a shiny metal surface, excuse me, is basically you're creating a curved or contorted mirror of the world, right? Because chrome is really just shining back the world, but it's doing it in a distorted way. It's wrapped around a bumper. It's on the surface of a robot's chest or something like that. And so you're really having to train your brain to think about how that contortion is reflecting the environment that object is in, whether it's a bumper or a robot or whatever. So the biggest thing to remember when you're creating chrome or metal is you have to think about the environment. What is the environment? And then you have to get that reflected into that contorted surface. Now there's another thing that you can do. Let's say you don't have it specifically in an environment. Let's say you're doing a character example and you're just putting it against a gray background. Well, then you can fake a kind of a world around that object. And in that case, I usually think about 4 different values. Values meaning light and dark. I think about my mid value, my mid dark, mid light, and then my bright light, okay? So I think that's 4, or is that 5? I can't remember. Anyway, those are the ones that I think about. But why don't we jump over really quick? And I've got several shapes that I've created here that we can put chrome into. And so I'm going to go up to here and we're going to grab a paintbrush. Let's just grab just a regular hard round brush, and I'm going to pull that together right there so we get something solid. I've created these kind of cool on a mid-toned background. Okay, so we're going to start mid-tone, and then we're going to go darker, and then we'll go lighter. So let's start with this first circle, and now let's think about it as a sphere, okay, as a ball. Well, let's imagine that it's outside, okay, and we're outside, and we've got a horizon line, and on that horizon line we might have some trees or something like that. That's probably the easiest thing to think about right now. So I'm going to go a little bit dark. And so the first thing we want to think about is, where is that ball in relation to the horizon line? So if the ball is above the horizon line, okay, we're going to get kind of a contorted curve underneath like so. If it's below the horizon line, it'll be contorted this way. So let's think of it as maybe it's just it's above the horizon line actually, and we're going to go this way. So I'm going to create a new layer on top. And let's just start to, and I'm just going to be really kind of spontaneous. Notice how spontaneous I am. Right there. Just creating a little bit of distortion. That horizon line is distorted because of the curvature of the ball. Okay? Now let's say we want some trees in it. Well, maybe there's some trees off to the side that are reflecting into the ball. I'm doing like little pine trees and bushes and things like that. Maybe there's some bushes up close. And then, these are all things kind of on the horizon. Maybe there's a tree right here. And I'm just going to kind of add little branches and stuff. Notice I'm being really kind of spontaneous, but I'm also following the form of the surface of this ball. So we're just creating this little there's a tree right there. You notice how it's coming down a little lower? Now let's say that grass, maybe where the ground is, maybe there's some rocks and stuff on the ground right here. I'm going to put a layer underneath it. And I'm going to say, okay, now that's going to have a layer underneath, and it's going to be a little darker than the surrounding. I'm trying to stay in the lines here. Of course, you got to stay in the lines. So there. Now, let's say there's a sun. There's a sun up here, and you can all of a sudden you can start to see that this is kind of got a nice feel to it. Now, maybe I'm going to put another layer underneath. Maybe it's got, I'm going to get a nice soft brush here. And we got our sun kind of over here. I want to go brighter with that. You notice how it kind of, it's going to fit the form of the ball. And then we can go really bright with it and get a little smaller because our sun is right here. There he's got some rays coming down. But you can see how that starts to feel really metallic. Okay, now we can simplify that as well. And actually I can run, if I wanted to, a little highlight along the bottom, like so. So you get a nice feeling of, like a feeling of metallic ness, I guess. So let's try another one. What if we're indoors, and or actually we can make it even more abstract if we want to. It doesn't have to be, a specific, showing the trees and all that kind of thing in the way that we did. We can keep it a lot more abstract, and I'll show you what I mean. Let's do this. Because it really is, like, we instinctively start to equate metal with just these different values being reflected in the surface of whatever it is we're looking at. And so you can get away with just going, okay, I'm just going to do this. And as long as you just keep everything kind of different, you can get away with it. And you got to follow that form. That's really important. You can keep it really abstract, like so, just like that, and then we go right into a bright highlight. Like so. Okay, so that you can do it that way, and you can see how it feels like it's metal. What if we want to try the inside of a room? If you and try looking at if you can find a pool ball or anything that's reflective, look at how it reflects the world around you. Hold it in your hands and see how it works. M.C. Escher, who is a wonderful kind of artist that drew illusions and a lot of different things that really messed with your eyes, had several drawings that he did where he was drawing into the contorted surface of a ball, and it was really great what he created. So what if we did this on top inside a room? So I'm going to grab this brush again, and we're going to, what you would do is I would sketch out the surface, like you'd see the corner of a room over here, and then you might see the floor, the corner of the floor, and then the other room over here, but maybe it's further away, and so it's got to come back this way, and then you got another corner this way and another corner that way. So you've got all these elements inside the room, and you want to see them kind of shaped inside. You might have a window right here that follows that form, and you look at the room that you're sitting in and see how that works, because you're going to find some really fun, you know, if you had a chair, you might see a chair that's really contorted like so and come around in a really weird way like so, and you can end up with some really cool forms inside that ball. Okay, but I want to show you, I want to move on to other shapes. So we've got the ball. You understand now how they can kind of wrap around the form. Well, what if you have a bar? Basically, it's round on the ends, but straight on along its length. Okay, so it's the same kind of thing. You might have a little bit of a curve here, and I'm just going to hold my shift bar down. We're going to run this down, and then we're just going to create another curve right here. And I can go in and just kind of vary that. Once again, I'm just kind of, I'm creating what you might have on the horizon outside. There's all kinds of variances on the horizon, different things, buildings, trees, whatever. And that's all reflected right there, you know. Let's do another one right along the bottom, just for the heck of it. If there's some dark stuff on the bottom, I'm going to erase that out. There we go. And then we can come in and get a little darker in here. Whoops, let me put another layer. There we go. We'll put it underneath. We'll go in here. Just create it a little darker. There. And then if we do another layer underneath, once again we can grab a color, and I'm just gonna, instead of getting the airbrush, I'm just gonna keep it with a regular straight brush here. You can see just by adding these different values, you start to get some cool looks to it. There, just like that. You can see how it starts to feel like metal. And then right in the middle of that, I can go really super bright. And you might get really hot right here. And then I can hold that shift button. There. And so it's really hot over here because that sun might be off to the side. And then you're getting a little bit of it, but as you go away, it's getting less and less of that sun. So you can feel like you've got this piece of metal bar, you know, going by. Really simple. The same thing, what if you had a shape that's kind of rounded on the ends, but flat on the surface? Well, it'd be the same kind of thing, right? So if we come in here, and we just come over here like this. I'm going to bring it down real low. Maybe there's some mountains there. I'll bring it right up. Because the sides are reflecting the world around it. Once again, it's all about looking at the surfaces, metal surfaces, and really trying to emulate what you have in those metal surfaces. And if this is outdoors, if you got a car and you're trying to create chrome, then it's reflecting the outdoor world. Whether it's in the city or if it's, you know, the chrome bumper of a Jeep out in the country, in the mountains, whatever, that's what you're reflecting. And so these are just kind of abstract representations of what you might see out in the, you know, in the country, in the backwoods and things like that, rocks and little bits of dirt. And underneath I can create another layer, and once again, because that ground is usually a little darker than the sky, we can get away with that. So this is basically it. This is how you do chrome and metal and all of that. And then when you start getting into things like robots and all of that, just think about these different values in the same way that we did up here on this ball in the middle, and you can start adding those variances as long as you're consistent from surface to surface. Really think about where that light source is coming from, and you're reflecting back. Even when it's abstract, you want it to be consistent, and then you can create something that looks like metal. So here I'm going to go really big with it. There. And I'm doing this just because there we go. Keeping it really simple with my own brush here. Like that. And now I can go really bright with it and say, okay, here's a sun that's right here. Like that, and it's missing, it's kind of fitting that form going around. And maybe there's some clouds. Oh, okay, let's do some clouds. They're going to fit in the form as well. They're coming around like so. Remember, they got to fit the form. There. So you'll have something that looks like that. Once again, there's an infinite number of ways you can create chrome, but as long as you follow this rule of thinking about the environment that your object is in, you're basically creating a little landscape or a painting of the room or whatever that environment is. You're basically creating that environment inside the contorted surface of whatever it is that you're creating. Now, there's another thing to think about as well, and that is, what if the surface, the metal surface, has a color? This is clear chrome right now, what we're doing. But let's say I put a layer over the top of it, and I'm going to set this to overlay just for a lack of a better way of explaining this. And I want to go, okay, this is going to be a red piece of, sort of like maybe it's a red ornament that you might hang on your tree that's really reflective, but it's got a color to it. So even your brightest color is going to have some kind of tint to it. So I'm just slowly covering this up, but you can see how everything will have a tint to it. Just like so. And rather than this white being as white as it is, I might pull it back, whoops, and put just a little bit of a tint over the top of it, like so, to keep it a little more consistent. So there, now you've got a piece of metal that's got a color to it. It's got a tint to it, okay? And so you want to make sure that everything in that image has that color to it. That you're adding that into the image. Okay, so that is basically it in a nutshell in creating a metal surface or chrome. I don't even need to I don't need to bother with this last one because I think we really covered it in this one on the right where we tinted it. Remember, you're reflecting the world around the environment. You're reflecting the environment into the metal surface that you're trying to create. And you want to think about how that surface, how the light, how the environment is bouncing off of that and molded onto that surface and being contorted by it. And so that's the thing. When you have a curved surface, make sure that world is curved around it in a way that is believable and can sit on it, okay? And you want to be aware of where your horizon line is, where it's reflecting. And try experiments. If you really want to get good at it, try taking a metal ball or a cue ball, anything, actually an 8-ball from a pool game, billiards, actually has the dark surface has a really good reflective surface. And if you can set that up and set different things around it and see how they curve in the reflection, it'll really give you a good sense of how to create that metallic reflective surface later on in future drawings. So that's it. Think about your dark, your middle tone, and your almost light and your white. Those are the 4 tones that I try to make sure that I've got within my metal so that I can create that nice illusion. So I hope you learned something, and it was kind of fun getting Aaron's art tips back, and I will talk to you later. Bye. Thanks.